Building Committee, I just want to make sure that I extend our thanks because people have been volunteering lots of time, learning lots of information, and tonight is an important milestone in terms of gathering information and listening. So we're listening to you. We're also joined by our owner's project manager, often called OPM, and that is Doran Whittier, so they'll introduce themselves later. They can wave their hands. And by our designing team, Danisco Architects, and Donna Danisco is here to present. So without, again, taking any more of your time, Donna, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's been a while, I think, since I've actually been in person and live, so this is really wonderful to be back. I know we're also recording through online, so we have quite a few community members that are joining us virtually. It's also being recorded by BCAT, and it will be available through the normal channels and also be posted on the website. So I just wanted to thank you, Dr. Conti, for introducing us, and we're really excited to be here this evening. I know we've been saying a lot of the same things over and over again, so it would be really helpful to gauge how many of you have been following us for some time, maybe with just raise of hand. Awesome. All right, then we might even be able to get through this even a little faster. So we don't want to be redundant and say the same things. We're really here tonight to listen to you, what's important to you, and we'll have an interactive activity or homework for you at the end so we can really understand what's important to you. With that, again, these dedicated individuals with the school building committee, I really want to thank them for all of their time, and this really is just the beginning. So we look forward to continuing our relationship. With me this evening is Doran Whittier. We have Mike Burton and Steve Brown, and a couple of others, I believe, are attending virtually. I'm Donna Danisco with Danisco Design. Vivian Lowe, who's the principal in charge, is doing us all a favor and doing this virtually because she's not feeling great. And we have Neil Harrigan, who's the project manager. And then, most importantly, we forget to talk about our friends, the Mass School Building Authority. They are a partner in this project, and because of that, we do have to follow their process, but they really are a partner in this. And so you'll hear a little bit more about them throughout the evening. So where we are right now is we are in feasibility study phase. No decisions have been made as far as what the preferred solution is. We'll talk about some of the solutions that have been removed from consideration, but no decision has been made as to the size of the school or if it's going to be a single Fox Hill or a combined school. We will be wrapping up the feasibility study in December, and our goal is to have a preferred solution submitted to the MSBA in December. We'll then start our schematic design, which is where the excitement gets going, and we can actually start designing the school. Once we finish that, which will be somewhere in June, then MSBA, the Mass School Building Authority, will vote to approve it. They will offer a project funding agreement with Town of Burlington, and then the Town of Burlington has 120 days to actually obtain the local funding for the project. Once we have that, we'll get into detailed design, construction documents, and before you know it, we'll have a new school somewhere around 2028. I don't really want to go backwards, but I just wanted to state the very first phase of being entered into the Mass School Building Authority's process or pipeline is called Mod 1, which is the eligibility period. The biggest hurdle or the biggest discussion and agreement during Mod 1 is your enrollment projections. MSBA has a prescribed method of arriving at enrollment, and they worked really closely with the district to arrive at enrollment projections. For Burlington, you have two enrollment projections, right? One for Fox Hill only, and then one for a combined Fox Hill Pine Glen school. And they looked at historic enrollment, and then they also project forward. So what MSBA looks at is what the capacity is within your other elementary schools within the district. I want to say that the district worked really hard to have MSBA agree that your class size goal is 18 students, not the typical 24 students in a classroom. And so with that, MSBA has arrived at approximately 1,592 students for the district by the completion of the new school. So here we are now. We're in the feasibility study phase. And we did submit the preliminary design program to MSBA in July, which outlined the educational program and the space summary, identified the existing conditions, both the site and the building. We established some design parameters, and then we designed and evaluated alternatives, but you'll note we never dismissed any alternatives at that point in time. Just to give you a quick overview, we spent a lot of time evaluating your educational program, right? This is for and about the students. So what you'll see is that we have the existing Fox Hill School of approximately 64,000 square feet. But what your true needs are is somewhere around 90,000 square feet. The difference here is that the goal is to have a portion of the DSC program that's fully over at Pine Glen, that because of the growing need and population of that program, that half of it is brought over to Fox Hill. Otherwise, it includes all the programs and support spaces that you currently offer for your students. If there was a combined Fox Hill and Pine Glen, you'll see that the overall enrollment or square footage is around 155,000 square feet. And the goal here is that you have, well, I'll come back to the shared facilities in a sec. We looked at the existing conditions for Fox Hill, and we appreciate so many people that have already voiced their concerns about a lot of the attributes of the site. What we do know, it's about 38 acres, of which about 18 acres is usable or buildable. You have wetlands and vernal pools to the south of the existing building and even to the north, which abuts Wilmington. There's relatively high groundwater table in select areas of the site. It's not insurmountable, it's just good to know as we start thinking about and designing the building. There may be some rock removal depending on the location of the school where it will be located on the site. We are filing an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation with the Burlington Conservation Commission, which the hearing is next week, I believe, and then we also actually have to go to Wilmington because we are in their jurisdiction for some wetlands to the north. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Fox Hill School, it's a single-story school designed in or built in the 70s. It has open classrooms, and you can see that it really has lived its useful life, right? Interior, most importantly, and probably predominantly why MSBA agrees that this facility does not meet today's educational needs of students. You have open classrooms in a way that have partitions, accordion partitions, that do not provide the right acoustics. You don't have the proper air flow as you would today. And you can see some of the spaces that are used for educational purposes, offices, small group instruction. So as we started looking at all of the alternatives that we were required to look at through the MSBA process, we had to look at everything from just a code upgrade and a repair of the existing school that's more to establish a baseline for cost purposes, all the way through new construction with Fox Hill only, and then we also had to look at the exact same options as we look at a combined Fox Hill and Pine Glen school. After we submitted the preliminary design program to the MSBA, the building committee came to realization that really the only two options for further consideration are a new school on the Fox Hill site. And so really those are the remaining options or alternatives to be considered, and we'd love your feedback tonight. When we talk about a Fox Hill only school or even a Fox Hill or combined school, what's really important is that we create the optimum adjacencies between the programs, that classrooms are clustered by grade, that we have integrated student support, integrated special education, to maintain a vertical and horizontal collaboration both for students and for staff, and that the school is zoned for after-school use and community use. When we started thinking about, okay, we're going to look at a combined school, what does that mean? We know how passionate everyone is about their own schools here, elementary schools. So we started thinking about, okay, how can we create a school under one roof that would maintain those separate identities? So when we looked at it, we said, well, we could have what is, if you have been following, this is what everyone's referring to as a butterfly school. Each school would have its own independent academic spaces, and they would also have their own administration, nurse, everything as you currently have it, but there would be some shared resources such as the gym and the media center. The cafetorium, as we call it, would actually have sufficient space so that you would have a partition in between, you would have independent cafeterias, and the shared space would be shared resources for the kitchen only. So what might that look like? Here you would see there's a partition that could separate the cafeteria with separate entrances into the servery area, and that you would actually be able to have two cafeterias operating simultaneously. And we're only showing this because this is a unique idea or concept, not completely unique to us. We've done it in other communities, and we've toured some other schools that have done it, but it's not your traditional, right, how do you have two schools operate under one roof? So just really quickly, these are all the options that we've dismissed. I really don't want to spend too much time. Happy to take questions. We looked at an addition renovation. We're realizing that doesn't really work for the existing building, right? It's this large, what do we call it, snowflake design, and it really doesn't, from a cost perspective or even from an educational perspective, provide any benefit. So where we are here is continuing to explore option 3. This is the new Fox Hill only school. We're going to continue to explore whether it's a 2-story or a 3-story building, whether it goes to the north of the existing building or to the southeast of the existing building. But there are plenty of opportunities on this beautiful site. What we do know is that the existing Fox Hill School needs to remain in operation when we do our construction. So we do understand the intricacies, and we'll be talking about phasing down the road, how we can manage construction and a new school functioning on the same site. The other remaining alternative to consider is option 6. So we will be referring to them as option 3 and option 6 going forward because MSBA doesn't want us to renumber them. But we're also looked at a very similar location for the combined school, which is obviously larger in nature. This is a 3-story option. We can certainly explore what a 2-story option may be for a combined school. Both schools meet the educational program. Both options will provide improved traffic with full on-site queuing. We absolutely understand the impact that currently exists with the traffic in the neighborhood, and we're happy to talk about that. And that, again, the existing school will remain in operation. So a larger school obviously has larger challenges, but we're confident that it could be achieved. And with this option, Pine Glen would become available for alternative uses for either swing space or temporary housing for a high school project or for other projects in town. Could be used for your early childhood center or something else. So at preliminary design program, or PDP, we give some really basic information about how to obtain some costing. We understand the site constraints, so we're able to articulate those costs. But it's a very high-level costing exercise so that you can evaluate the options comparatively, and we'll be getting into a real more detailed cost estimates even at the end of the preferred schematic report, which will be coming up in December. But what this shows is for a new Fox Hill school only, you're somewhere between $102 and $107 million. The district's bond amount, or the portion that you would be responsible for, ranges in 77 to 82, with the residential tax impact per year ranges from 233 to 248. If we looked at a combined Fox Hill and Pine Glen school, actually this is new 3-story, but it's $151 million with your share of approximately $111 million, and that tax impact is somewhere around $335 per year. And we do have some ways and means people here who helped us put these numbers together. As an aside, we were asked to look at what would it cost if we just did Fox Hill and if we did Pine Glen on our own, right? What would those costs be? So we did apply the same parameters, the same educational program, and the same parameters, and we arrived at that two schools, I should say, not combined, they are not combined, Pine Glen would be on its own site, but looked at both schools. And if you built 2 independent schools on their respective sites, the cost is somewhere around $205 million, and your share would be approximately $175 million, with a tax impact per residential household of approximately $500, sorry, a year. We can, if you have any other questions, we're happy to be able to answer those for you. So as we move forward and we continue to explore the options, we now are coming down to where we really need to make a decision on what the preferred solution is for the Fox Hill School. And that's why we're here tonight. We really want to hear your input. We have, if you've been following along, we've used all different types of tools and resources to help the building committee look at things from a very objective perspective. And this criteria matrix is one of those tools. So we asked everyone to rank each criteria, which you probably cannot read here, but it goes everywhere from equity within the district. We talk about the cost. We talk about the educational impacts. We also address the impacts, what the preferred solution might look like from a building and site perspective. Sustainability is a really important component for either option, and we'll continue to reach the best solution as it relates to sustainability as well. Community input, impacts to the neighborhood, as well as construction impacts, right, to both the local community and the overall community. So we had everyone on the building committee fill out these forms. This is for a new Fox Hill only school, and this is on the website for anyone that wants to really spend time looking at it. And then we also asked them to do the same for option 6. Right? These are 2 tools that will really help us as the building committee deliberates what the preferred solution is for the Fox Hill School. So that's kind of currently where we are. No decisions have been made. Again, we're here to listen to you tonight. What is coming up is we will be talking about this other way to be soliciting your input. It's called Thought Exchange. And we'll be talking about that at the very end this evening. But we will be having Thought Exchange open for a couple of weeks. We'll be able to obtain your input. It's totally anonymous, so we really ask you to be honest and tell us what your preferred, or what your thoughts are. We are meeting on October 3rd for further discussion and a review of the Thought Exchange input. We'll then also come back on October 30th to further discuss if there are any refinements to the options that are needed to make a final decision. We have not selected a date, but in November, we will be looking for the building committee to vote on what the preferred solution is for the project. We will have a draft report to the building committee by December 6th with a vote to submit the preferred schematic report to MSBA on shortly thereafter, the December 6th vote. We have to submit the PSR to MSBA, I think it's like December 28th, but we wanted to wrap this up for the holidays so everyone can enjoy them. So now it's time to listen to you. We have public comment, Q&A. We have a couple of high school volunteers. I see 1, 2, oh, thank you. All right, we have 2 people with microphones that will be coming to you so that you don't have to come down front. If you have anything to say, they'll bring the microphones to you. As usual, please state your name. Please raise your hand to speak. I've got people helping me here to make sure we don't miss anyone. We are going to ask that you stay within the 3-minute time frame. And we have people remotely. And so just because of the logistics with BCAT and everything else, if you are remote and you want to opine or provide any comments, please use the chat button. It's going to be one way, and it's only going to Bob Kuna. So we just don't want conversations to be occurring remotely. So with that, I know many of you, what is your name? Yeah, my runner. What is it? Cole. Okay. So Cole, the gentleman right next to you, if you want to.
I'm Jim Correa from Sumner Street, not too far from here. Is it on? My name is Jim Correa. I live on Sumner Street. The question I have is, you had 2 spreadsheets. Were any conclusions drawn from those spreadsheets? The priorities and criteria. What a lot of work was done there. Were there any conclusions drawn from the results, or you have yet to be filled out, or?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So my man behind the curtain up there, thank you. Yes, so as you can see, if you just look at the colors, right, this is one tool as we were using for it, but the green is positive, the red is neutral, and the yellow is neutral, and the red is negative.
Right. What about option? Oh, see.
And then when you look at option 6, you can see, for me, I'm a visual person. I can scroll down and read the numbers down below. Yeah. Thank you. So what you'll see is still a lot of improvement across the board, but there's more neutrals and reds for option 6.
Thank you. I was just interested in
Yes, thank you. How about someone, this gentleman? I'm going to try to bounce back and forth. We have some people.
It's on.
Okay.
Thank you. Gary Feldman from Freeport Drive. My question is, when you're looking at option 6, why have you considered just one school to replace the 2 schools? I think there could be some savings there. You don't have to have 2 entrances. There's a lot of duplication, it seems like, which is normal when you have schools in different places. But if you're going to have one building, I know they just built they're building a new school in West Andover. It's a 3-story building to replace 2 schools. And as far as I know, it's just one building for the 2 schools. So why have you thought about just having one school to take care of it? I know there's a lot more students, but Francis Wyman has a lot more students also, so couldn't that work out?
Yeah, thank you. We have had lots of conversation, and from all of the input that we have heard is that both schools really want to maintain their own identity, and that having 4 elementary schools in the district is an important feature that they want to maintain. So while this is 2 schools under one roof on one site, you can still maintain your individual identities. It is possible. You know, if that's something they want to consider moving forward, we can certainly look at that as what would the savings be, et cetera, in the future. But that's been the thought behind keeping the 2 schools. Thank you. A lot of share. Yes, there is some sharing within the resources within the school. I'm trying to, where's my runner? Sorry, Cole, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Cole. I'm John Porter. I live on Fox Hill. I'm an awful public speaker, so I'm going to keep it short. I only have one point to make anyhow. First of all, I'm very excited about the improvements that we could make to Fox Hill or Pine Glen. I think they're both in much need of improvement. I've spent a lot of time in Fox Hill, and I'm excited about either renovations or replacing it, whatever comes along. My single point is that I'm very concerned about the traffic. I work from home. I have a window that looks out over Fox Hill. I've watched people crash into the telephone pole out in front of my house. I've watched people drive on the sidewalks to avoid the speed bumps. Sometimes they drive on the sidewalks even if they're not avoiding the speed bumps. I rarely see folks stop for the stop signs. I might be one of those too. Can you tell me a little bit more about how doubling the size of the school is not going to lead to at least doubling the traffic problem? And if the athletic fields are going to be there, I think I saw as many as 4 on one of the maps. That seems like a lot of evening activity as well to support those athletic fields. And then did I hear about a lab program that might be some additional students that would be coming into the double-sized school as well? Thank you.
I'm going to try to, I can answer the lab first. I'll go backwards. The lab program currently exists at the Fox Hill School. It is the developmental skills program that currently is at Pine Glen, and it continues to expand. And so the goal from the school district is to split that so that both schools have the capacity to accommodate that ever-growing program. To answer your question, it's not double the capacity, or the number of cars is probably about 40%, but your point is well taken. There will absolutely be more traffic going through the neighborhoods of Fox Hill with a combined school. What we have done is, let me go to 6, is that we have spent a lot of time looking at how we can accommodate the queuing on site. That still does not mean that the cars will not be driving through your neighborhood, but you will not have the congestion that you currently have right now. There just are some very limitations. Let's see if I go here. Here you go. This is your existing school. You have a lot of limitations right now as far as on-site queuing because of the safety of the students. There's what they consider a loop road coming around the building, and they do not open that loop road until just a few minutes before students are dismissed. And the loop road would come around the building, but right now the students access the playgrounds right here to the east of the school. So they don't want cars looping around while students would have to cross to go back into the building. So we are confident that we could improve the traffic and the queuing, but you would have more parents and buses and staff driving through your neighborhood, probably about 40%. As for playgrounds, I think that we are confident that if we go back to what you currently have, you have one small playground here. So in either scenario, you'll have, our goal is to be able to enhance the site so that you'll have more opportunity for community use of fields and play areas on site for both. But yes, a larger building has a larger impact on the site.
Would those fields lead to more traffic at the other fields as well?
Microphone, please.
Yeah, he asked if the more fields would lead to more traffic in the evenings. I can't speak to evening activity, but yeah, I would assume more fields would have more community use. Yep, thank you. I'm gonna take a call here, and Cole, the person in the orange, if you want to go there while we take a person here in the black t-shirt.
Hi, my name is Michael. I'm on Gibson Street, and this may have been answered before, so forgive me if I ask if this has been brought up before, but if we go with the single school option, when would Pine Glen be redone? Would it be like right after or years after? Like when would Pine Glen get updated after the fact?
There has not been a, we've been talking about it, and I really actually should not be taking this.
I can just tell you from the district perspective is if we're going to be using the MSBA, the State Building Authority, we can only submit one priority per year. So our next priority would be the high school that we would be submitting, and depending on then how the high school project works. Remember, we had submitted for the high school for 10 years and not been selected. And so that's one of the reasons we changed to Fox Hill, because we were having enrollment pressure. Currently, we have the high school submitted because that's where we are in the process. And then our next project would be Pine Glen, submitted through the state. That doesn't preclude the town from doing anything that they want, but if you're asking from the district perspective, we would prioritize the high school next. We already have something submitted for the high school for this year, and then depending on what happens, we might have to submit the high school again next year, and so we can only do one at a time.
Are we live? Okay. Malcolm Trevette, Alma Road. I've got to be missing a boat here somewhere. This is a phenomenal amount of money we're going to be spending on upgrades. It takes I got to really tone down my language on this. It takes a long time for getting anything done in any of the schools. And you're going to have a phenomenal amount of traffic and school buses and people driving their kids to school in the Fox Hill area. And if I lived in Fox Hill and they were going to change two schools in one area, I'd be a little bit upset, unless I lived 10 miles away from the school. Now, there's been several times schools around in the town have needed upgrades. And it takes a phenomenal amount of time to get anything done. You gotta go through the state, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. But I just don't see the cost effectiveness of this. People in the Burlington area, their kids are gonna be taken away from everything they know in the area that they live in. Head over there. And the Fox Hill people, they got to put up with it all. And I just don't see how this is going to work out to the benefit of Burlington. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll take one more person here. Cole, you want to head to the back? Maybe the gentleman in... Okay. And then we'll read one from
Can you hear me?
our
Can you hear me
virtual
okay?
friends.
A little higher, okay. Hi, my name is Beth Pandolfo, and I started coming to the meetings in May to educate myself, so I've just kind of prepared some comments, statements after being in person for most of the meetings and watching them online. I haven't missed one yet. A few weeks ago, a friend of mine and I were talking about this, and he asked me what my angle was regarding my concern over a mega school being put in at the Fox Hill site. I was really taken aback by that question, and we've since had a discussion about it, but it got me thinking, do I have an angle? Is it more than just a genuine concern and thinking this is a very bad idea? And then why does there have to be an angle? But I decided to go with it. I don't live in the Fox Hill neighborhood, so I guess my angle is not the traffic or the undue burden that this will put on our fellow residents, and not just during arrival and dismissal times. Every group will want to use the new school for their games, recitals, dances, and the like, and that will mean increased traffic for the furthest corner of our town, probably 7 days a week. I didn't grow up in Burlington or even Massachusetts, so I'm not nostalgic for any particular school, so that's not my angle either. I'm not with any organization that would be interested in Pine Glen's land for developing or other usage or whatever, so that's not it. My kids are older, out of elementary school, so getting them a new school is definitely not my angle. I work at Pine Glen. I thought maybe that was my angle, and who could blame me for that? I work with some amazing people, a lot of them here tonight. That wouldn't change though, regardless of what happens, so that's not it either. I think a better word that my friend could have used might have been perspective. I would go so far as to say forward-thinking ability. As a former teacher, I have 20+ years of experience actually working the day-to-day in an elementary setting and a unique perspective of both a staff and a parent in this district, including experiences at both the smallest and the largest school in the district. And at one point, between my kids and I, we were in 3 schools. I would be in 3 schools on any given day in this district. We moved to Burlington 14 years ago, and the week we moved in, Wildwood, which should have been my children's elementary school, was torn down. I had no idea at the time how the town operated or all of the happenings that closed Wildwood and eventually demolished it. But a few years later, when my oldest started at Francis Wyman, I would realize what it meant for my kids. It meant a school that was originally a middle school was now my baby's school. Francis Wyman was not designed to be an elementary school. It was way too big, and because of its larger size, I would argue that Francis Wyman has not been treated equitably, at least for the 8 consecutive years that my children were there. Having over 500 kids in that building at all times, that would be 5 classes per grade level, and in my younger son's case, it was 6 classes per grade level, until they took the 6th class away in 3rd grade and just upped his class size to 24 children. While both of my kids had amazing teachers, I can't help but be upset that they were robbed of the smaller school environment and community that Wildwood would have been for them, and that Fox Hill and Pine Glen have been for so many. Sorry. Scared the shit out of me. Am I okay? Oh, are they? Oh, okay. Woo! Well, I'm glad it's not me.
Time's up. Just kidding.
Sorry.
No, really,
All for me. Anyway.
Yeah, if
I'm
you could-
almost done. I'm
Thank
almost
you.
done. I will
Thank
wrap
you.
it up.
Thank you.
Anyway, so I guess that's my angle. I want to do better for my kids' kids should they choose to raise their families here someday. And I'd like to not repeat the mistakes of the past if we can help it. And we actually can. We should be looking to set up the situation so that future generations will have options when it comes to decisions like this, as opposed to being forced down a predetermined path that we chose for all the wrong reasons. We need to preserve the smaller neighborhood schools that Burlington is known for and keep our 4 separate sites intact. If we're looking at what's truly best for current and future generations of Burlington children, in this case, bigger is not better. And it's no secret to anyone that watches these meetings that you all don't see eye to eye with each other, and regardless, you need to find a way through. You are charged, the school committee, committee with looking out for the children's best interests first and foremost, and I am disappointed and frustrated that it has come to this constant bickering that helps no one's cause. We are asking you to stop with the mega school, and you're not listening to us. There are no studies that have been presented to date, not one bit of data, no research to show that larger elementary schools have any educational or social emotional benefit whatsoever to the students. None. It's the opposite. The mega school benefits one thing and one thing only, the bottom line. And the fact that anyone charged with protecting the educational and emotional well-being of children would vote for an elementary school, I've sat through every single meeting, is irresponsible and a disservice to the children of this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Where's my run? Oh, okay. So the gentleman here, yep. And then the woman raising her with her hand up with the paper in the back afterwards. Over here, Cole. Was there anyone over here? Okay. If you could just run to that gentleman. Sorry, thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael McCarthy, and I live on Westwood Street. And my wife and I have lived for 41 years. Both of our sons attended Fox Hill School in the 1980s. It was a great experience for them, and where they forged some bonds that are lifelong bonds with some sons of other people that are here. I actually had an occasion a couple of weeks ago to attend an event where 6 of them were in attendance. And these are guys now in their mid-40s. And they were inseparable. For 2 hours, they stood there and talked to each other and laughed and joked about the old times, about talking about their families and everything. So the small school experience is not a theory. I have proof that it works. But the reason that I want to speak mainly is I'm an architectural engineer by profession, and for the past 40 years, I have been working to design and build tall structures around the country and even internationally some. So I have a good perspective, I think, on what a building size looks like. In a 3-story building, in case some people probably don't know, the average size of a 3-story building is between 33 and 40 feet tall. So if you took a number in between, a median of 37 feet, you would ask yourself, what does 37 feet look like? Everybody here probably knows Fenway Park, the Green Monster. The Green Monster is 37 feet tall. The Green Monster is also 200 feet long, from the left field corner to the left center field corner. If I looked at the options here, option 6 I was looking at, and option 5 initially, but the wingspan of those buildings from one end to the other is well over 400 feet. So that would be twice the width of the Green Monster. So if you can imagine up in this lot, this area, 2 Green Monsters, side-by-side buildings connected by one building in the middle. And of course, these buildings wouldn't be green, they'd be brick, they'd be red. And they also wouldn't be two-dimensional as a wall would be, they'd be 3-dimensional. So there's a depth and a mass to these buildings as well. I think the mega school description is a very appropriate one. It would be a large complex. And, the school that's there now, it fits in quite nicely to the environment with 1 story, nestled in between in front of the trees and all. The option 6 here would dominate the environment, and it would be bad for the neighborhood. And that's one of the things that kind of, I think, hasn't been paid enough close attention to. Your study points to roughly 111 vehicles, parent vehicles, coming into the school on a daily basis. Well, that doesn't include school buses.
Sir, can you wrap it up? We're
Sure.
over at 3 minutes. Thank you.
The traffic on Westwood Street, from a police study, averages 900 cars a day in the summer when school is out. When school's back in session, that number goes to 1,200. If Pine Glen comes over, we're talking about 1,500 to 1,800 maybe. And, you know, that's a ridiculous number for us to have to deal with.
Thank you.
Dennis Doble, Westwood Street, also a proponent for the single school at Fox Hill. I have questions money-wise. Does the state, where we're getting 23% from the state, is that every town that applies for these projects gets 23%? Second question is this: if we don't go with the state money, I'd like to know what the tax burden would be if we just did it on our own, the way we wanted to do it on our own, maybe. I'm not for a 3-story building like Mr. McCarthy said. I think it's too big. I think kids at a younger age are afraid that something might happen at the school and a 3rd floor isn't going to cut it. And the other thing is, and my last question would be, has anyone in the town gone to the surrounding towns, and I don't mean just like the surrounding towns that abut Burlington, but a little further out in each direction, and come up with their tax burden on the taxpayers and compare it to what we're paying right now? Because I think that, again, I'm a senior and I'm worried about the taxes going up and everything, but I don't think we pay as much as a lot of the surrounding towns do for everything that we get from this town. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. So to answer your questions, every community has a different reimbursement rate with the MSBA, right? It's based on your poverty level and some other factors, and then it also includes other aspects of the project, what's included, what's not included. So every project, even within a community, may end up with a different reimbursement rate by the MSBA. So that's answer one. We have not studied, other than looking at Pine Glen, that would have 3 classrooms per grade. We have not looked at what the cost would be for a larger Fox Hill only school at this point. So to answer that question.
Did anyone give us the tax burden up there that you had a display, what it's going to be in the tax burden when you give us 23, I mean, the state gives us 23%. We took the whole thing on. Would the tax burden be $250? Would it be $300? Would it be $3 million each person? I don't know, because I don't think there's been a study done. And then the most, see, there's the 233 burden on whatever the state's going to give us. What if we took it on our own? I'd like to know what the tax burden would be down the road. I'm sure no one's done that yet. And again, the other one about taxes is, what are the surrounding towns paying for taxes in their town compared to Burlington? Thank you.
Again, rough math in front of people. If you look at the 3D, the cost would be $107 million. And if you look at 6A, which would be $111 million, so I'm going to roughly equate those two. The tax burden for $111 million, if I'm reading this correctly, I'm looking at my Ways and Means folks, is $336. So I think building Fox Hill, the single school, again, 2-story with no help from the state, I think would be roughly around $336. Is that roughly equivalent?
Oh, I see what you did.
Again, asked to clarify, these are annual and on a median taxpayer. So again, I'm equating the borrowing of $111 million to the $107 million roughly, if I'm doing that correctly.
And we had the, yes.
Ready?
Yep.
My name is Joanne Frustacci, and I'm a Precinct 3 town meeting member and a parent of a 2016 BHS graduate and now Harvard University alum. In the past 18 months, town meeting has funded $1.5 million for a feasibility study for Burlington High School. So I'm just surprised we're actually here tonight. And I agree with the previous speaker, bickering is never good, and neither is cronyism or shrewd backroom politics, so I hope that we're all here to objectively look at this. My daughter went to Francis Wyman. I want to present another perspective on that. Till 2010, she came from a very small private school with about 200 students. At the time, enrollment was well over 600, and no one ever called it a mega school. No one. People didn't get horrified at the size, by and large. Dr. Conti will tell you I complained about 1,000 things, but never the size of the school. In fact, I thought it was good for her, and it exposed her to a lot more various things that I think prepared her for a large university eventually. I also want to make the point that the 10-year plan that the school committee accepted somewhere around 2017-18 had $27 million earmarked for the replacement of these 3 schools. And right now we're in a place where even 10 times that won't replace Burlington High School. And now we're facing this proposal to build a small school that will displace 100 students, so it's going to be smaller than the current school. And I know that Mrs. Monaco had suggested that the 640-student school would ruin a quote-unquote classy neighborhood. I didn't think Francis Wyman ruined a neighborhood, and I kind of take offense to that comment. But now we have 3 schools that need serious replacement work to the tune of $500 million. I feel that students at Fox Hill and Pine Glen both deserve 21st century learning environments. We don't have another 20 years or $100 million to wait for Pine Glen's turn. So I would suggest thinking about building the Butterfly School so that we still have money and goodwill enough to take care of this high school, which should always have been our first priority. And I don't know how it got deprioritized and we got derailed into Fox Hill. This building has no sprinkler system, and over half the classrooms have no windows, and I only learned that from these meetings. It holds 2,000. We're heating a building for 2,000, but it only has 890 students. So again, I'm going to urge you all to consider that there are, of course, going to be neighborhood people who are affected by construction. I abut the high school. I expect to have a year and a half of a nightmare when the high school is.
I'm sorry. Can you?
I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One over. Yes, you, the blonde with her. Yes, and then this gentleman down here.
Thank you. Hello, committee meeting members. My name is Katrina Boschetti, and I live on Fox Hill Road. I come here as a concerned resident, taxpayer, and parent of current and future Fox Hill children. As I have spoken before, I come here to ask you not to build a mega school or a mega campus and to keep the 4 schools and 4 properties. The 640 school will be too big for the neighborhood, as we know, and it will be more than 640 with lab, admins, and teachers, which will increase the school traffic daily, as well as the public events you want to have there. Though more importantly, and the absolute most important, is how this school will be too big for elementary school children. We have yet to hear how having a school the size of a middle school will benefit small children. On September 6th, my household was running a little bit behind, and we took my first grader to school late. When we were walking in there was a kindergartner who was so afraid to go inside for their first day of school. The poor child had her arms wrapped around the pole, and a teacher and Mr. Rosenblatt were trying to talk her into coming inside. When I was walking out of the school, the child was still there and was still scared. The teacher and Mr. Rosenblatt did a great job telling her all of the fun things they do in kindergarten, and by the time I was pulling out of the parking lot, she was inside. How many children will Mr. Rosenblatt and the teachers have to try to take off a pole to get them to come inside the mega school each day? How terrifying asking a 5-year-old to walk into a building that big and leave their parents for the first time. Please tell us how this mega school will benefit the children with their emotional needs. And if this goes through, How are you going to keep our children safe? How do you expect 5 to 10-year-olds to react if worst-case scenarios happen? By having a mega school, you are choosing to add unsafe elements to children who are unpredictable and most likely will not listen in a scary situation. The school committee should want to do what's best for the children in the community. The school ratings are dropping and more kids are going to private schools. At this point, the MSBA numbers that no one agrees with may come true as more kids will be opting out of Burlington Public Schools. Thank you.
So we have this gentleman here, and I know this gentleman's been waiting. And then, sir, you at the aisle afterwards. Thank you.
My name is Sam Rippin. I live at 153 Wilmington Road. I've been a Burlington resident for 30 years. I have 2 kids that graduated Burlington High in 2015, 2020. I've been a town meeting member. My kids went to Fox Hill School. More importantly, I was a town meeting member back in the mid-90s. More importantly, my background, I've been in public education as a central office administrator. I'm in my 23rd year doing this, and I've overseen to completion multiple projects of this nature. In fact, I'm in Peabody, and we're working to rebuild the Welch Elementary School with Danisco and Doran Whittier. I support, and I guess I take odds too, I don't call this a mega school. It's larger than what Burlington is used to, but when I started in town meeting in 1994, one of the first things we did is we converted the Francis Wyman, and I wish we got deals like that at the time. It was a $6 million project that ultimately cost the town a little over $3 million. And there were concerns about the size, but I think when you look at the bigger picture, and I'm quite disappointed at the low reimbursement rate, but I'm hoping that gets better, as $100 million was recently added to MSBA to raise reimbursement. The big picture is, and I'll be affected, I live in Fox Hill neighborhood, is, the high school, as people have mentioned, need replacement. This is an opportunity to get funding to replace 2 buildings that are on the same street, albeit on opposite ends, on the northern side of the town. And I think we'd be short-sighted. People have talked about, not investing in children, but I would argue the pie is fixed. Again, I do budgets for a living. And so the economies of scale, and a lot of these, with economies of scale, you can have more support staff, you can have more nurses, you can have more to support the children and put the community in the position that once that building is done, Burlington's in an enviable position that when that's done, every building will be effectively 30 years or newer. Very few communities are in a position like that. And then you only have the high school left to deal with. And honestly, and I can speak to this, Peabody High is in to study. It's going to be a $400 million project if we're lucky for 1,500 students. And the other thing is you're going to lose square footage because as it is, we're going to hope to hang on to the auditorium and hang on to the field house because if you take MSBA money in a project like this, you'd have to, you're limited on a 750-seat auditorium and you can't build a field house. And so I'd really think long and hard before you advocate for 2 separate schools. I think we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot, in my opinion.
Thank you. We have a gentleman here, and then this woman in the white, and then the woman in the back standing up. Thank you.
Hi, Dan Collins, Fox Hill parent. Assuming either of the options gets selected and funded by the town, what type of site disruption and impact should students expect?
I might be able to speak to that a little bit. When we built the memorial school, we had the the existing memorial up and functioning, and I think the project design team and the OPM worked really hard to make sure that we had safe access and egress for the kids, and that the site was didn't impact the learning, that was going on to the best of our ability. And my recollection, new construction at some, I think the closest point was within 10 or 12 feet of the building. So again, the teams do this quite often, and I think they do a very good job. In terms of site disruption and where the building is placed, I'll defer to Donna, but the school can work while the building's being done.
Thank you. So again, we have not selected the final location of the school, whether it's enrollment 1 or enrollment 2, but you have quite a bit of space and options on this site so that we can safely and effectively allow the operations of the school to continue while we construct. And as part of actually, we're working on phasing plans for further consideration, deliberation in this phase on how that would play out as part of the preferred schematic report. Yep, thank you. I know this woman here, thank you.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Myrna Saltman. I live at 15 Greystone Court in Arborwood Condominiums. And the reason I'm speaking out now is I had the pleasure of being with the principal of an Acton school the other night. I believe the committee was just out there looking at that school configuration. And it's 2 schools in one building. And the ground floor has the auditorium and the gymnasium. And the principal is thrilled to be there. He said it works beautifully. He came from an elementary school in Framingham that had over 500 students. This one building with, the second floor is named one school, the third floor is named another school, and the first floor has a preschool as well as the auditorium and the cafeteria. And that to me would seem to be the most cost-effective way of handling this. And I only ask all of you here, because it looks like there's many grandparents here as well as parents, when you went to school, did you have 3-story schools that you went to? And if you did, congratulations, because you're still here. I wanted to know, are any of you people sitting there, the visitors to the Acton School, Briggs Gates, could you speak to what I'm referring to, what the committee's opinion was of seeing it? And the school's only 2 years old, and it only costs...
Yeah.
I cannot say. I was asking the principal so many questions he couldn't even eat his dinner.
It's okay.
So please, I'm going to ask that you direct questions to us, or else we won't be able to hear anything. So, Ms. Saltman, I think you asked what some of the visitors thought of the school they visited.
Yes.
I'm sure that's going to come up at a future school building committee meeting. We can have that conversation at that time. We really want to hear your conversations again about the 2 options that we're discussing in the presentation that you heard this evening. And so that's what I would suggest. But again, please direct your comments here. And again, we will listen. And it's just difficult for us to follow if the conversations go back and forth.
Well, I would just add, my tale would be that I asked the principal, how much did it cost the town for these 2 schools? He said $38 million. That was only their portion. They got it from MSBA and some other source. I'm not familiar with it. Thank you.
Thank you. I know the woman in the back, if you wouldn't mind, with the piece of paper. Is there anyone over here? Oh, this gentleman's been waiting. And then we'll hit you guys up. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Barbara LaRue, and I am the current chair of the Planning Board, a lifelong resident of Burlington and the parent of one adult child who went through the Burlington school system. As Planning Board Chair, I want to offer the experience and support of the board and our staff as the committee moves forward with this project. We stand ready to assist with site plan issues, and we encourage you to include us in the process as soon as possible. As a parent, I put my 5-year-old on a bus to go to kindergarten at Francis Wyman School some years ago. At that time, Francis Wyman was the largest elementary school in Burlington with over 600 kids attending. I was happy that my child was going to a school that had undergone a major renovation less than 10 years prior. I was really happy that she only had 18 kids in her class, and that would remain so throughout her elementary school experience, which was a wonderful elementary school experience. No one called it a mega school. No one worried about the size. I think we all instinctively understand the value of small class sizes. The size of the building itself was never a concern to me. But since it's been raised as an issue, I reached out to various members of this committee asking for research on this matter, but I've not received any thus far. So I did some research on my own, but I wasn't able to find any studies that suggest that a large school building would have a negative impact on young children. And indeed, one of our most highly acclaimed preschool programs is housed in this very large building, and it does not seem to have harmed the little ones attending that program at all. My main concern with the small school option is that it leaves 20% of our town's children out. If we proceed with that plan, Pine Glen will remain as it is for this foreseeable future. Now, I know that many Pine Glen families love that small school and they don't have a desire for an upgrade. But the families that are at Pine Glen now will have moved on to middle school before either of these plans come to fruition. We need to think about what is best for Pine Glen students 5 or 10 years from now. I have asked repeatedly what the plan is for Pine Glen and received no satisfactory answer. I've been told there'll be studies that will apply for state funding, just as we have for 10 years for the high school. But these are not plans, they are hopes and wishes. And in the meantime, 20% of our children will attend a school that is significantly older and less safe than the other 80%. That's unacceptable to me, and it should be unacceptable to everyone. I understand that there are traffic concerns with the larger school proposal, and those are valid concerns. But we have a myriad of options that can be employed to mitigate traffic. It's not an insurmountable problem. But leaving 20% of Burlington's children in a school that would never pass today's safety standards is. For these reasons, I support the larger Butterfly School option because I believe it will provide a better and more equitable experience for both Pine Glen and Fox Hill students in the many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this gentleman, where's Paul?
Hi, my name's Scott Mindell. I live on Merritt Road, and I have a 4-year-old and 2-year-old that will eventually be going to Francis Wyman. I did go to a 3-story elementary school. I did go to a very large middle school and high school, and I had a great experience at all of them. I went to a college that at the time had 40,000 and now has over 50,000. So I never felt that, you know, there were kids left behind. As others have pointed out, you know, just because a school has a lot of stories doesn't necessarily mean it's too big, especially if we're going to keep the student to teacher ratio of 18:1. And, you know, as some others have mentioned, if you have the single Fox Hill school, those 100 students are going to get displaced. The Pine Glen students are still going to be in an aging building that's going to need replacing. And then there's another expense. And then we still have to improve Burlington High School. So there's another expense. And it just seems like, you know, we're prioritizing one neighborhood in hurting the rest of Burlington, the rest of the students and the rest of the community, and we're going to end up getting stuck with a higher tax, you know, if we have to do 3 separate projects as opposed to only 2, and it's still only going to benefit a smaller percentage of the town rather than the whole. And so I just would like people to consider doing the combined school for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's a woman in blue at the end. Yep, you. You, yeah. you could, and I know this gentleman here also had a question or comment.
Hi. My name's Elena McElroy. I am a Pine Glen parent, also a Marshall Simons Middle School, and a BHS parent. So I have kids at each level. I will not have a child in the elementary school by the time this project moves forward. So I'm just trying to speak from a little bit of my experience and then also some points that I just want to make sure that everyone is kind of aware of. First of all, having the larger school, 3 stories, I'm just worried about time on learning for those kids, specifically the kids whose classrooms are on the 3rd story. For them to get to your cafeteria is going to take them longer. Does that mean their lunch is shorter? Do they leave their classroom earlier to be able to have enough time to get through those lines, to get their food, to sit down and eat? What about when it comes to gym or music or any of the specials that, if I understand your schematics correctly, are going to be on that 1st floor? You're talking about having young children, 10 years old, if the 5th graders are up there, trying to make their way 3 stories down to get to these activities. So I'm worried about the impact on their time in learning or them giving up some of the things that make the elementary school experience, first of all, make them well-rounded students, but also make the experience something that's going to travel with them through their education as far as enjoying education. So there's that. Also, when you were giving the tax numbers, when we talked about funding, like the tax impact on if we did the Fox Hill School and then did Pine Glen on our own, you had stated that that'd be about $500 tax. But in earlier meetings, because I've been going to these meetings since May, trying to follow along, it was stated at some point during those meetings that if we say we do not want to include Pine Glen in this project at this time, it does not take away our ability to apply to MSBA at a later date for some funding for Pine Glen. So that's accurate. That number is not that accurate, in my opinion, because we don't have to fund it fully ourselves. We can apply again. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that, that number is not exactly what it might be. So there was that. Also, I understand the MSBA's study said, I think it was for the next 10 years, they're expecting our student population to go down, and that's fine, and maybe in the next 10 years it will be, but to my knowledge, there has not been a period of time that the human population has been going down. As a matter of fact, it is going up, and I'm assuming that's because there are more births happening, so therefore those children are going to need a school at some point, and so I don't see how, unless we're funding this building to last us 10 years only, I'm not really quite sure why that's really that huge of an impact for us as far as, the numbers as that goes. So I'm not quite sure about all of that. And then the last point I really want to make is, okay, let's do this double school on one site. That's great. And but Pine Glen doesn't just disappear. We still have a building. We have to maintain that building. And then if that building is going to be used for any of these other uses that have been thrown around, these ideas, we still have to renovate or rebuild or do something because it is still in the same shape it is in right now. We are still in the same problem.
Can I ask you to
Yep, no,
disrupt
that was my last
Thank
point.
you.
I just want to make sure other people
Great.
are hearing
Thank you
that.
very much. This gentleman here, and then I know there was a whole group of you over there. I see the gentleman in the yellow sweater or something. That's I can. Yeah.
Thank you. My name's Adam Sinesi, and I'm a resident of Town Line Road. I have a daughter who's in Fox Hill. We absolutely love the school, but there's no dispute that that school needs renovation. I think the biggest issue that the various sides are coming around to on this is that the size of this building, no matter how we slice or dice it, whether we go big or small, it's not right-sized for Burlington. And I've followed the process, so it's not like I fell off the turnip truck tonight. I watched it back when the MSBA gave us the projected enrollments for the district, as the woman before me alluded to. And I think since we've been given those numbers, regardless of what MSBA thinks, things have changed. Last month, Governor Marla Haley declared a state of emergency in Massachusetts. Last week, in the New York Times, there was an article about Woburn And I've seen other articles about how Burlington is one of 28 communities targeted by Massachusetts because of our hotel population with cooktops, where we can house people in what's considered in Massachusetts as a right to shelter state. So the state pays for homeless families to live in our hotels. And this is something that the state enforces on us. But last month, Maura Healey declared Massachusetts to be in a state of emergency. And since the beginning of school, we've had 17 new families come into the district. I'm sorry, 17 new students come into the school's populations. And I think that whenever these previous numbers were given to us by MSBA, they were given to us before a state of emergency was declared. So what I would really ask is that we go back to the apple one more time with the MSBA, and I think we want to right-size this for Burlington. I think, Cindy Friedman, she's our state rep. Let's lean on her a little bit. I'm sorry, a state senator. I'm sorry to give Senator Friedman short shrift. But she's a former teacher. I mean, it's entirely possible. She's been working on Beacon Hill before she was a senator. She was already up there as a power broker. Let's lean on her and her context. It's entirely possible one of her legislative aides is now working for MSBA. Let's work the phones a little bit. Let's network here. Let's play the inside game, because I think we're really, we're not performing our due diligence, and we haven't right-sized this for Burlington if we haven't exhausted every option like that.
Thank you. I know there was some others, and then the woman in green. You want to take a couple online?
Or take one more and then online.
All right, we'll take one more over here. We're going to take one online, and the gentleman in the orange in the back, you did that on purpose, didn't you? So you'd stand out. The orange. We'll hit you next, and then over here. Thank you.
Hello. Kristen Russo. I've been on, it sounds, no?
Yeah.
Hello? Can you hear it now?
Yeah.
All right. Kristen Russo, former Ways and Means member, former school committee member, town meeting member, children, graduated, ready to graduate throughout the whole thing. So I have a lot of different questions or areas I'm coming at this. The first one is, does Pine Glen have to be a complete rebuild if it's not part of this building with Fox Hill now?
No. We would go through the same,
Okay.
assume the
So
building committee
again,
would go through the same exercise as you did here to look at a renovation addition option as opposed to new construction.
Okay, thank you. So again, that number on the bottom might not be accurate moving forward. Second, with regard to planning, if we were to build something like this for a business or something else to go on this area, I don't know if the planning would be approved. I don't know if the traffic would pass muster. So yes, it's a school, yes, it's educating our children, but we have to look at what are we building there, what are we bringing in the neighborhood? Would we allow that for another business or building with another use? We are talking not just 648 students, we're talking about the administration, the staff, the teachers, the custodians, all of that. I work in a neighboring town. They just brought into our school and the school across the street pre-KK. Not a huge number of classes, but it has disrupted the traffic from the beginning of the school year. It feels like every other day there's a new option. No left turn going off this street. No left turn now going off this street. The parking alone, we now have parking passes for the teachers. The kindergarten are getting dropped off and the teachers can't find parking. We have to remember this isn't a high school build. This is elementary. We are talking about 4 or 5 years old, moving through to 10, 11, 12 years old. They don't get off the bus the way the middle school and the high school kids do. You look at that middle school, pack those buses, and they're off and flying. That's not happening at the elementary school. So when we're talking about the building, yes, from a Ways and Means point, I'd be like, whew, let's go for that. But talking from a teacher who's in these buildings and from somebody, as the gentleman said before, what's right for Burlington. We're talking about, I don't care if it's a 1-3 building, but when you're putting two side by side, think about that. That's not the same as a 1-3-story building or a 1-2-story building. You're putting side by side. And then you have the safety. More students. We're talking 100 more than Francis Wyman. Something happens, the water main breaks, anything happens, you've just shut down 648 students, not one school. It happens often. You're troubleshooting one school often. Now you're looking at half the elementary down. So there are many reasons I have to say I'm for just the Fox Hill School. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you're going to leave. So I think we have quite a few people joining us virtually. So if you could just bear with us for 1 second, sir. I think we're just going to try to read a few of their comments.
So a couple of the questions. 1, 2, is this on? Blue one? I know, wait. Blue one, blue mic. 1, 2, there you go. There we go. A couple of questions that have been asked online have already been answered. But we will repeat them if need be. The first question is, if we were to rebuild both schools, are MSBA funds available for both sites or just one?
So the answer to that is this project is for one site. It could be both schools, one building, on the same site. If you chose to do just Fox Hill only and wanted to do Pine Glen separately, you would have to reapply to the MSBA to be awarded back into their program. I would like to clarify, because I believe a question did come up a while ago, and we would just like to clarify that MSBA's response to would you be allowed to apply for a future project with them. The answer is yes, only when this project is complete. So you're only allowed one project at a time within the MSBA program. So so the answer is not no, you can apply, but they will only accept one they call priority project at a time with MSBA. So that is an option that you could submit the Pine Glen School after that.
So,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can we just continue with this? Okay. The completion of the building, sir. Completion of the building. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
So has there been a consideration on updating the existing infrastructure, sidewalks, parking lot, basketball courts, walkways, et cetera, at Pine Glen? So again, I can talk to that briefly, but we'll move on to that. So the parking lot was just repaved 3 years ago. DPW just repaved the walkways a couple of weeks ago. There's no plan in place right now to replace the exterior basketball courts. But again, we're not going to forget about Pine Glen regardless of the project either way, so there's still a maintenance plan. And again, I don't know that this conversation will address whether or not the infrastructure for exterior Pine Glen is hit. If I could jump on to the next question, it says, can you explain how the increased tax cost for residents would work? Is it an increase on property taxes? Will the cost for individual taxpayers vary based on home value?
I'm looking at our Ways and Means members, if anyone's comfortable responding to that. Thank you, Roger. Sure.
Hi, Roger Riggs, Ways and Means. The taxes in Burlington, the revenue that's raised that supports operating budgets and everything else comes through property taxes, which are based on the valuation of each individual home. And so it's proportional depending on the value of your home. Maybe too much. Did I answer the question? I think. Okay. The number that's cited is for a median priced valuation home within Burlington. There are many more, and median means there are as many houses above that number as below that number.
Thank you. I think we're going to, is that it?
We can jump back.
Okay. The gentleman in the back, thank you. Well, try again.
In Burlington?
There you go. You're all set.
I'm all set now?
Yep.
Okay. I was a telecommunications with Homeland Security. I should know how to work this thing. I'd like to get some points of clarification on your slide presentations. I'll start with the first one that you have right up there now. You're showing the figure, the resident tax impact for FY '24. Is this a one-year taxation, or is this going to be several years, and the tax is going to be different in out years? I also like to find out what we know about the enrollment figures that you projected. My understanding is those figures came from the state, and we really don't know how they're calculated. I'm interested in knowing the basis for those calculations. And as a gentleman pointed out here, Woburn and Billerica are now getting non-citizens being brought into their communities. We don't know what the actual populations of the schools will be 5, 10 years down the road. So I'm interested in knowing their projection is compared to the full capacity of the school system. And I'm also interested in knowing if the non-town share is guaranteed money and how is that paid. Lastly, in terms of maintenance costs, if we had a quote-unquote mega building versus 2 separate buildings, what is the difference in the maintenance costs on an annual basis? Is there economies of scale? Those are my questions.
Great. Thank you. I just wanted to write them down. So the question about is the fiscal year '24, if that's an annual, I think your question, if that was an annual basis. The answer is yes. I don't know how many years you projected that out.
For the length of the debt?
They said it's bonded for 25 years, so that would be the cost for 25 years. Yes. Yes. The enrollment, you were asking about MSBA's enrollment study or how they arrived at their enrollment. I believe it's on the website. Thank you. MSBA does a very thorough and prescriptive way of how they look at the enrollment. They not only look at births, but they also look at in-migration and also out-migration, and it's an incredibly in-depth analysis. I believe it's on the website, and so you should be able to find it there. Your question was the non-town share amount, is it guaranteed? So the answer would, and how it's being paid. It will be guaranteed. Right now, what we're projecting is a projection. At the end of the schematic design phase, when we know the cost of the project, right now these are order of magnitude costs, you will enter into a project funding agreement with the Mass School Building Authority, and that is a pay-as-you-go. And so you will get paid for every month that you submit your invoices or bills, they will pay you back. So it will be a guaranteed amount that you get paid. And then there's some adders to that. If you achieve a certain sustainability, you'll get additional money reimbursed at the end of the project, and et cetera. But you will get paid as you go, and it will be guaranteed. And then lastly, maintenance costs. So your question was, is there... By square foot, yeah.
Shared gyms here, shared auditorium.
Well, so the square footage is approximately 150,000 square feet for the combined school versus 90,052. What's the square footage for Pine Glen? Current 60, something like that? 62. So would there be economies of scale? I guess I'm going to defer to you, Bob. You still have to, right.
Well, again, I think there's multiple conversations to happen with that. So first would be, is there economies of scale of building a combined school versus a single school on? The answer is yes, but it is definitely square footage based. We're talking a 62,000 square foot Pine Glen existing with older equipment in it, which obviously would not be as efficient, whether to burn fuel, whether the windows, whether the insulation, whether the roof would be as efficient as a new building. I don't want to tell you the return on investment because I don't know it, but what I'm saying is that yes, a new building would definitely be more efficient. So potentially with the larger size, I would expect the cost to be equivalent, roughly, or a tiny bit less. The combined school would obviously cost us more than the current 62,000 square foot Pine Glen or roughly 64,000 square foot Fox Hill.
I know everyone wants to speak. So a gentleman standing up in the back, and then I want to get you, I know there's some hands up here, and oh, the woman in the green. Yep, I promised her. Cohen.
All right, thank you. I'm Bill Boyven. I am a town meeting member for Precinct 1, where the Fox Hill School is located, and I'm also a resident of Fox Hill Road. I keep hearing how Burlington is trying to build its brand as a biotech community and building lab space, lab space, lab space. I want to know whatever happened to its traditional brand as a quiet residential community. Certain areas are supporting huge development, and I support that as it brings tax dollars and tax revenue into the community, but those are not in residential areas. The quiet bedroom community still is trying to exist in the hearts and minds of the residential areas. I visited the Acton Dual School last week, and it is gigantic. It just would not fit into the environment of the Fox Hill neighborhood. It doesn't belong there. Even the single school, New Fox Hill, would be 50% larger than the existing school. I have difficulty seeing how even that will fit into our neighborhood. I support the single school at most and nothing larger, please.
Thank you. I think there's a gentleman here, and I promised the woman in green. So, Cole, when you're done, here, well, could you bring a mic down here? Sorry.
Okay, my name's Dave Wadilla. I'm a 30-year resident of Burlington and a Precinct 1 town meeting member. I find the logic of a butterfly school is lacking. It's more of a narrative of convenience than a strategic plan based on sound reasoning. Proponents of this school say that we can maintain our neighborhood school feel by simply placing the Fox Hill district in one wing and the same kind of thing for Pine Glen in the other wing. This falls apart quickly, right? The more salient approach and the way that every school in Burlington is set up is that the divisions would be made by grade. You would set all lower grades in one wing and all upper grades in the other wing of this beautiful butterfly. Maintaining a division within a district is a bad plan. Separate but equal doesn't work. We know this. The better plan is simply not to create the problem in the first place. Pine Glen is a great school. It supports a neighborhood. It's part of Burlington's fabric. There is no need to throw this school away. Burlington has done a great job at maintaining Pine Glen. Let's figure out what else the school needs and get on it. The better plan is simply replace Fox Hill. This maintains a true neighborhood elementary school model, something we have all bought into as a town. This is a lower cost solution. Even if we factor in spending some money on Pine Glen, it's still lower cost. We don't create the problems of jamming an oversized school into a tight corner of the town, the traffic, the congestion, all of that. We don't have to deal with it. Please don't build this enormous school. It doesn't fit our town. It doesn't fit our neighborhood. It doesn't fit our youngest learners. Thank you.
The woman,
The woman in green. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicole Niedermeyer. I've been a resident of Burlington for 45 years. On September 5th, Ms. Massardo, you stated that if we build the 325 school, we won't have capacity for the current enrollment at Fox Hill, and that gave you pause due to the inequity of redistricting kids. The definition of equity speaks to the concepts of fairness and justice, recognizing that we don't all start from the same place, and acknowledges that we need to make adjustments for imbalances. Let's take an equitable look at the 640 school and apply the same argument. You're essentially building two schools, 320 and 320. So your argument of 325 being inequitable is doubly inequitable at 320 and 320. That has never been brought up. I feel that the 640 school proposes more inequities to the students in the community. In reality, 325 and 640 only represent a portion of the children that will attend these schools. Both schools will house more students. Dr. Conti, on 9/5, you also stated that providing programming to children with different levels of autism is a priority in Burlington. How are these kids going to feel walking up to a 700-person school, plus all of the faculty? How are they going to handle getting off those buses, going to the cafeteria, into the auditorium with all of those kids? Do any of you have or been around kids with autism? That's terrible for them. How is placing the, I'm sorry, I'm so nervous. How is placing the largest elementary school in Burlington in the middle of a residential neighborhood? We're the only residential neighborhood that has a school. They're all on a main road here. If you look, right? I can't, I'm so angry. And I'm so hungry.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
It's easy to talk about us as snobs, right? Because that's easy to say without knowing who we are. But if you look at us on Vincent Road, Donald, Fox Hill, Hart Street, and Westwood, the majority of these residents are the original owners and are hardworking people who love the children at Fox Hill School. Many of them have spoken to this committee and begged you not to consider this large school based on their experiences over the last 50 years. How the traffic has gotten out of control, how the speed of the cars on these roads has increased despite signs, speed bumps, sidewalks, crosswalks, how our country has lost its mind and crazy people shoot children in schools, and keeping the schools smaller so you can protect children's lives in the event of a tragedy. What 90% of you don't see is all of us shoveling the sidewalks when the plow guy doesn't show up so the kids can get to school. You don't see us giving out Band-Aids, hugs and kisses to kids who are crying when something goes wrong, if they're pushed or they're bullied. We guide other people's children across the street so they don't get hit by cars. We love that school. We love all the children in that school. We are a Fox Hill family. Come election time, we will not be hitting the pause button on any of this. We're going to hit stop. We're done. We don't want the 640 school, and we don't want people in office that promised us to keep a small school and are now pushing the 640 school. Thank you.
You had, I don't know if you did. Yeah, why don't we, yeah, go ahead. And then Paul, well, the woman down here as soon as this gentleman's done.
All right, thank you. I'm not sure if I can outdo you, but fantastic. My name is Christopher Kraft, and I live on Westwood Street. I've been a Burlington resident for 46 years, 44 of those years on Westwood Street. And I have 2 points to make. One, pretty much kind of stated prior by other speakers, but a little more casual way. There are several of my neighbors who intended to be here today but could not be. They're elderly. One gentleman doesn't drive anymore, certainly doesn't drive at night. A few other people were not feeling too well. So I'm not here to potentially specifically speak on their behalf, but I do want to speak of the conversations I've had with them over the last several months about a new school being built to replace the Fox Hill School. And the overall consensus, and I think most of here would kind of agree with it, that it was never intended to have that type of traffic flow, noise pollution, congestion of a school that is being proposed as far as the combined school. And that is kind of the main concern. It's not a question of trying to keep the exclusive Fox Hill area, because you see that in any real estate and people talk about that. but it just never was that kind of the part of town in which it was the opposite of the Burlington Mall side. And that's the whole thing about Burlington having a little charm, is that we had our 128 technology belt. And of course, obviously, construction has even increased over with 2nd Ave and everything, and that's fantastic. It's good for Burlington, it's good for employment, it's good for our tax base. But there's the other side of Burlington, obviously our Fox Hill area, which was kind of left alone for all these decades. And like I said, I moved there in 1979 when the top of Westwood Street was woods. And fantastic. I moved to that side of town because I actually moved here in '77 and lived in Lord Barron. So I know kind of both sides of Burlington. And when other people spoke of as far as Francis Wyman School kind of not being called a mega school at the time, well, I attended Francis Wyman when it was a middle school. And I can tell you when it was 5th through 8th grade, there was quite a few students there. But what I can also tell you is that it was built on Terrace Hall Ave, which was always considered a major thoroughfare between Middlesex Turnpike and Bedford Street. But there was also another entrance to Francis Wyman Middle School right off of Bedford Street. So from the beginning, it was designed, yes, as a fairly large school, but it had an ease of access. Fox Hill School, in my opinion, was never designed to have that type of ease of access because it was never intended to be that large. And my concern is building something so large with the increased traffic, congestion, noise, and to be honest, it's a safety concern. These are all safety concerns as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a real concern, and I hope the school committee considers doing the 2 schools as opposed to the combined school.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Megan Navoychek. I am the CPAC president. I've been in this position for the past 5 years. For those of you who don't know what the CPAC is, it's the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. I'm a parent of 2 Francis Wyman students, a town meeting member for Precinct 4, and also a member of the Ways and Means Committee. I, along with the other members of the CPAC board, are against combining Fox Hill and Pine Glen. The larger elementary school is overwhelming for small students in the K-5 setting. This has the potential to cause an increase in out-of-district placements. Kids struggle to regulate in these large buildings, especially our children with autism and other auditory processing disorders. Out-of-district placements often go to age 22, which is an increased cost to the town, not only for tuition, but also for transportation. We need more in-district programming to address the needs of our students, and in order to do that, we need more space. And if we combine Fox Hill and we combine Pine Glen together on one campus, we're going to be losing out on the flexibility that we need to combine to create more in-district programming, which federal regulations provide. We've also recently hired a director of programming to address these programming gaps. Thank you to my fellow town meeting members for supporting this. We need to do this in a thoughtful way, and in order to do that, we need space, and renovating Pine Glen will give us the most options and the most space flexibility. And also, I really want to point out and emphasize that a stronger and more robust special education programming creates a stronger, more robust general education program where all of our students can thrive together. Thank you.
Yep,
Good?
you're good. You're good.
Rob Schlansky, 30-year Burlington resident, member of Ways and Means for 9 years, town meeting. I was also the co-chair of the group who were proponents for the project that ultimately resulted in the memorial school and the middle school renovation that we now have. After some serious blood, sweat, and tears to get there, including considering a kindergarten center at the Wildwood that somebody mentioned. I would fully concur with folks who have spoke eloquently, and so I won't repeat on the impacts to educational quality and impacts to the neighborhoods, surrounding neighborhoods, if we ultimately choose to put a large school on Fox Hill. I would personally recommend against that. I did have a question that will lead, that I don't think has been touched on, that will perhaps lead to a further comment. I'm curious what the source of funding is intended to be when, regardless of which option gets chosen. I'd like to know if there's a difference. Are we going to a debt exclusion, or is the intention that there's enough capacity in the capital plan for the funding to be allocated through a simple town meeting vote, which incidentally isn't so simple, but
Gentlemen. Glad you're sitting close, thank you.
Yep, that's good. Hi, Roger Riggs again. Great questions. There's a subcommittee, so the town's finance team and Ways and Means and the subcommittee of Ways and Means are all working on how to approach the several projects that are in the 10-year plan and beyond. It will, as for a particular debt exclusion, the parts of the budget that all sort of are going to collide at some point is the costs of building the buildings, which will be bonded over 25 years, but they will be, each building will add to the costs of the bonds, and our continued operating budget, which is rising at a rate currently because of the services that we provide at a rate higher than 2.5, proposition 2.5. So somewhere in the future, there is a collision with all of this funding and all of these projects. And there's a lot of good people thinking about exactly how to lay it out. One of the favorite terms is how to space and pace it so that we're not spending all the money all at once to get there. And it's very likely that one or more of the projects will require a townwide vote to exclude the particular project or projects from the Prop 2.5 limits.
do you think there's a higher likelihood that the larger school will require a debt exclusion versus the smaller one? Is there a chance we could pass something without a debt exclusion with the smaller one?
Initial conversations are that yes, you could probably pass one of them. However, then you would probably have to end up with a override or something else at some point anyway. So it's strategically, it behooves us to figure out up front how to layer the projects in and how to spread it out enough that the combined tax base doesn't reject the concept.
So I'll just offer a word for consideration and perhaps a warning. It's great to be here in a room where everybody seemed to be proponents of these projects and of improving the school buildings and the quality of the education that our kids have here in Burlington. But going to a debt exclusion, I've done it. Folks up there have done it. There are more people than you might think in this town who are not interested in paying any additional taxes for any kind of school buildings. And we did this once and lost. I know before my time here, it was done once before. It also lost. So I'd just be cautious if the larger building, in addition to all the other good reasons why I don't think it's a good idea, is going to require more funding, that's going to require a debt exclusion, you're going to have a real uphill battle on your hands.
I think there was a gentleman in the back, Cole. He's behind you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Greg Lamb. I grew up on Fox Hill Road. I went to Fox Hill School. I don't know how many people in this room actually went there. When it first opened, or within a few years of it being open. I now live in Westwood Street. I raised kids who went to Fox Hill School. I know what the capacity is for the Fox Hill School. I know when I went there it was grades 1 through 4. Now it's more than that. I knew what the capacity was when I went to school there, and it did seem crowded. I know the landscape at the school. I know the neighborhood. And I can tell you that to expand and put 2 schools on that piece of property just does not fit. I hear some things about a 2-story Fox Hill School as opposed to the one that fit into the neighborhood. I can't imagine a 3-story there. 2 would be enough. There's a lot of residential around that school. 3, I think, would be enormous. And I just ask this thing that even if you do what you do to the property, I hope it just remains a Fox Hill school, not a Fox Hill combined school. And I hope that if you do put a piece of property on it, that you do not put it on the north end toward the end of Fox Hill, because that building will stick out like a sore thumb. So if you do have to use the property, maintain the school while it's open and put another building on it, I would ask this committee to put it on the back side of that where there's more wooded area, so we don't have to look at a two-story building every time we go up or down Fox Hill or Westwood Street to go by that. Thank you.
There's a gentleman in front of the gentleman with the orange shirt. Could you stand out? Yeah, you. Sorry, you. I know someone's coming. Thank you. And someone else over in this area? Who's got him? And just cue someone up. This gentleman here. Okay, thank you.
Purple, hello? Hi.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. What's the furthest distance from Pine Glen? Like, I know you can't plan out exactly where everyone who has kids is going to send to school, but like, what's the furthest distance from like that area for where they'd be going for the combined school? That's it.
What's a road that, a road in Pine Glen, current district?
We're thinking that.
I'm trying to think right now. Donald? No, not Donald. What is it?
The Eats?
What's the one on the left side by 62 Plaza? What are those streets right there? The one next to the top one. Yeah, I mean, Geddick? The Eats? Well, Geddick is up there. I'm not sure of the question. So you're in a combined school. You said, what's the furthest street that would go over?
From Pine Glen to Fox Hill.
I know, but maybe Geddick? Maybe?
No, what's in Pine Glen district now? The furthest from Pine Glen.
I don't have the district map up
Yeah,
here.
you don't have the right stuff.
No.
So,
well, Avalon Oaks goes there, right?
You know what? We're gonna figure that one out. And while we're figuring that out, I think there was a gentleman
I think
here.
I can
Oh,
answer that.
there
I
we
think the Avalon Apartments, Bob, currently go to Pine Glen. So I think that would be sort of the furthest into town. You want to know the furthest Pine Glen catchment area from the Fox Hill site? Am I understanding your question? So again, I think students currently at the, Bob, at the Eaves, is that?
So,
what's the development? Arboretum?
The Arboretum. That's
Yes.
Avalon Oaks.
Yeah. To go to Pine Glen, so they would go to the Fox Hill site in the combined setting unless we redistrict or whatever. But I want to make sure I answer your question as asked.
I'm not sure we did.
The neighborhood, not bust from the Arboretum,
Okay.
per se. It's up behind Burlington Jade, Pathwoods Ave, that area, right? You guys are the furthest. To answer your question in terms of what's considered like neighborhood Pine Glen, currently.
Yeah.
Did that?
Cole, can you get a microphone?
Cole.
Well, I mean,
Did
Long Street, my area, and then 62 on the...
So what was the name of the road, ma'am? You said residential, not the building.
Pathwoods Ave, up behind the Burlington Jade. I'm sorry, I don't mean to degrade where you live. You guys know the names of the streets
Long
better.
Street.
The Pathwoods Ave area, up behind Burlington Jade. Throw me another. Office Francis Wyman Road, the other side of Cambridge Street. Is that helping anybody? The other side of the highway. That's considered Pine Glen neighborhood, and then you have the Arboretum who is bust into Pine Glen.
Right. You go all the way to Billerica, all the way down 62, Bowling Alley.
About 3 miles?
Yeah, 3.
So I think about 3 miles, I think is what people are telling me.
Okay, so I think this gentleman, yep, you, yep, thank you. I know we got to
Hi.
Sign language.
Dennis DeLore, 247 Fox Hill Road. I prefer to sit. I am a little unstable standing, and I prefer not falling over in front of all of you. So, where my house is located, we're 3 houses from the intersection of Fox Hill with Westwood, namely the inlet road for Fox Hill. I don't think there's any building that knows more about the traffic problem than me. I've been looking at it out my front window. Huh? I've had trouble at times backing out of my driveway because of the traffic. There have also been times when I've come down Donald Road I'm going with the intent of getting into my driveway, and when I'm on Vincent, I have to go on the opposite side of the street and then break onto Fox Hill and go on the opposite side of the street again. This is a serious traffic problem. You build a big building and you're just asking for terrible trouble. One of my big concerns is the kids in this town. Access to that big building. You've got Westwood, you've got Fox Hill, you've got Sumner, you've got Vincent. If there is ever a situation, I'll use the word an active situation, and you know what I mean. I don't know how emergency vehicles are going to be able to get there and provide the help that will be needed to protect our treasured kids. I look out my window, I watch the kids go by for school in the morning, come back from school in the afternoon, and that's one of my joys. I love seeing the little kids. I'm a grandfather. What can I say? I worry about boxing them in a great big building with literally no access for emergency vehicles and anyone that might have to get in there quickly. Serious concern? Yes. You mentioned that you think you can control the traffic problem. I'd like to know how you're going to do that. There's only about 3 or 4 streets, and it's already excessive. Throw in a large building, and you're going to double the problem at a minimum. So that's my thought. A lot of the other things I had have already been taken care of by other people. So consider our kids, the safety of our kids, the safety of our teachers. That's it.
Thank you, sir. It is 9 o'clock. We could do a lightning round. So the lightning round will do sort of 3 and 3, and then we also have another one other thing we want to show you how to provide us input that's really important. So again, please, lightning round. We'll go as quickly as we can.
Okay, this is Adam Heister from Vincent Road. I'll go really fast. I just got a flood watch on my phone, again, for how many times? I don't know how many times in the last month or 2. I live on Vincent Road, and you were talking earlier about the high water table of Fox Hill School. If you build a large school, large footprint, with a large parking lot, with fields that have drainage on them, I'm concerned for all of the houses on Vincent Road. I'm afraid that they're going to be flooded. Right, high water table. Yeah, I think that part of that design, you're going to cut away some of the trees, the forested land. If it comes into more towards the neighborhood, on the eastern side of the property, I see trees marked. There, trees are marked there. I vote for the smallest footprint possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie, go ahead. And then Julie, we'll get to you then.
Okay, can you hear me? So I'll try to be quick. A couple of things. I've just kind of been listening tonight and taking this all in, and sorry. My name is Betsy Monaco Mansfield. I have 4 kids in the district, 1 at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and 2 in elementary. They're currently at Fox Hill. I lived prior to that in the Pine Glen neighborhood, so I know all the schools pretty well. So we have heard, a lot of interesting things tonight. A couple of people early in the night talked about how Francis Wyman was never called too big. And I just think it's important to remember that this school, the combined school, would be significantly bigger than Francis Wyman, and in fact would be the size of Marshall Simons, which is a... that supports smaller schools having better outcomes. And I did a little looking and found dozens of studies that show that smaller schools do have better educational outcomes. In fact, in the state of Florida, they passed a law that won't allow an elementary school to be built for bigger than 500 students because they believe that those have better outcomes. And in Vermont, they actually incentivize smaller schools. There's a statute in Vermont where what happened is they had all these small schools. They started to combine them because economies of scale, somebody brought up. They thought it would save them money, and they found in the long run it was more expensive to educate kids in bigger schools because the outcomes were not as good, and it actually cost them more money to fix the educational disparities. So in fact, in Vermont, they give extra money to the smaller schools. So I think if these other states have looked at the research, we ought to be able to look at it and know that it's kind of a no-brainer that smaller schools perform better. And then the last thing I just want to say is, we hear a lot of talk about the high school, and I have a kid in the high school, and I have 3 more to come, and I want a new high school as bad as everybody else does. But Lexington is in the MSBA process now, and it's a $400 million project. Arlington is in phase 2 of building one, and it's a $300 million project. For us to throw the baby out with the bathwater and build an elementary school that nobody in this room seems to want because we think it's a little bit cheaper, that doesn't get us the $400 million it's going to take to build a new high school. That's a different animal. It's apples and oranges. They've got a new building committee that is just being formed, and we need to do that project and do it right. But it's not a good reason to do this one wrong. Thank you.
Okay, again, remember we are in our lightning round.
Hi, I'm a Burlington resident. I have been my whole life. I went to Pine Glen. My whole family went to Pine Glen. I'm a parent of Pine Glen student, and I also work at Pine Glen. All I want to say is I've been watching these meetings since May, and I'd like to know where everyone keeps saying the same thing and talk about different things. I don't want to repeat. People ran on small schools or different things. I'd like to know why we keep doing debates and forums trying to get a different answer. Everyone I talk to in town meeting, friends and people, they all want 4 elementary schools in Burlington, and that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Any more lightning round questions? Yes, sir. Over here. Colt.
One sec. We're just getting the microphone. No, yep.
I'm sorry, I got it. Can you hear me? I live on Michael Drive. The traffic in the morning up on that corner, Westwood, Box Hill, all up around there is crazy. And you want to double the amount of kids. Every kid from Pine Glen is not going to walk. They're all going to be driven. So the traffic isn't going to go up 2 times, it's going to go up 4 times. All right? We don't want a big school. I haven't bumped into 3 people other than here that think this is a good idea. Small kids go to small schools for a reason. They're little. And mothers like to walk their kids to school. They're 6 years old, 7 years old. Who from Pine Glen is going to walk their 6 or 7-year-old when they live on the other side of the highway? They're going to drive them. We don't want the traffic. It's pretty simple. You build the Fox Hill, you get the money. For $175, you build the Pine Glen, if you need to. It's $175. We just spent $20 million to change our water system. We found money to build a public works building. We found money to build a fire station. Now we're going to build a police station. But when it comes to the little kids, screw them.
Thank you. So appreciate everyone coming out. I know that for many people, we're having lots of repeat conversations. It's important that we listen. So that's why you're here, and we appreciate you taking the time and allowing us to hear your comments. If I could just ask you for 5 more, sorry, one last comment, and then I need 5 minutes to go through our thought exchange. So go ahead.
Purple. Purple. Keep talking.
Hello? Okay. Melissa Giuliani, Fox Hill Road, resident, taxpayer, thank you. And crossing guard, because that happens to me a lot. I came here tonight because I spoke to several people in the community, not just on Fox Hill Road, but friends of friends or mothers of friends. And there were misconceptions out there, so thank you for clarifying some of them tonight, in that the town can accept the Fox Hill project as itself and then go back to the MSBA and ask for that in future years after completion of the project. So thank you for clarifying that, because that was a misconception that we would lose the money if we didn't go with the combined school option or otherwise. Secondly, if we go, sorry, nervous too. Sorry, Dr. Conti, I think there was another question around how kids are going to be redistricted if they're going to be redistricted. And while I understand you answered a similar question to this the other night, I think it's worth reiterating to the larger audience here on this topic for persuasion, for redistricting and what that would mean. The estimate count right now for 325 students currently at Fox Hill is 425. That doesn't include the lab kids. And then 640 for a combined school, which would currently, with the current enrollment, be 763 kids. The number, that's just the general education alone. That does not include the lab coming, which is an added 70 to 100 kids. That doesn't include the staff coming, which is an added 100 staff from the Pine Glen site, which adds, I think that's around 850 extra. That's a total of 800 to 900 kids, or cars and traffic and people in general, right? So now you're adding buses, you're adding cars, you're adding staff, you're adding all of this to 2 dead-end roads without easement and a throughway. Thank you for raising the Florida comment about they had their state law in 2000 and won't exceed 500 kids for an elementary school. Lastly, I think altering our school vote in previous elections for the 4-school and the platforms that you all ran on, to now say that the butterfly school makes sense and refer to the combined school as a butterfly school is just being unrealistic. It's a misconception that these schools will be able to maintain their separate identities, and while sharing everything is like living in an alternate reality, that will eventually become one. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, we're gonna modify, we're gonna reduce staff, we're gonna have 1 principal instead of 2, where it's inevitable that a butterfly school is going to reduce, it's gonna become 1 identity eventually, and that's not what the town wants. What the town wants, what the families of Fox Hill and Pine Glen want, is to maintain their schools and their sites with the smaller entities, more focused, inclusive environments, so their kids in their kids can thrive in their early and most vulnerable years. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we just need 5 minutes of your attention. So Steve Brown from Doran Whittier is going to explain how you can, again, further get us your input as we go through this process. Steve.
Thank you, Dr. Conti. First of all, thank you for your attendance this evening, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. I think this is one of the most well-attended public forums that we've been a part of as owners project managers. So thank you for carving out the time and joining us tonight. We know that the building committee process is hard for everybody to make time on a bi-weekly or monthly basis to attend those meetings, whether virtually or in person. So thank you for your patience, hearing everybody's thoughts tonight, and to have a very productive and thought-provoking public forum. So to help continue the conversation, the district has provided a public survey tool available to the entire Burlington community. We realize that a lot of you had made time tonight to provide comments, but there's others that either have not been able to attend for other reasons, schedule or otherwise. So it's not an attempt to solicit any feedback other than what we've just had or to drive any sort of agenda, but simply to listen to your voices as the public body. The tool itself is called Thought Exchange. It intends to be a little bit more quote unquote intelligent than just a simple Google survey instead of just a one-way question and response. And it works in 3 or 4 different steps. Again, it's open to the public. We have, it's all held online. It's a software service that's hosted. We have links provided to help you get there, but it essentially asks a very singular but open-ended question. As a public, you provide responses, thoughts, comments, questions in response to that question, and what it does is it broadcasts those questions back out to everybody that's participated in the survey. And it's intended to help rise sentiment, common sentiments across the overall population, many of which we heard from tonight, but it's just in an effort to be further reaching. And again, we realize this is a step in the right direction, and we're just trying to be as inclusive and as responsible as possible. After those comments come in, as I mentioned, you have an opportunity to view the thoughts and comments from everybody else that's participated, and it just helps to rise some of these common sentiments to the top, whether positive or negative, for, again, feedback, and it's to continue that loop. So we're going to have the survey open for a couple of weeks. We encourage you to come back. The survey will be open beginning tonight, and will be open 2 weeks until the 29th of September. And after you've provided those comments, we encourage you to come back as often as you're comfortable. Obviously, tomorrow the survey will look a little bit different than it will in a couple weeks. So if you have the time and the capacity, we encourage you to stay engaged. For those of you that are technology inclined, there's a QR code on the screen. You can use your mobile device to point your camera at it, and it should pop up with a link to bring you directly to that survey. Alternatively, you can go to tejoin.com and enter in this 9-digit project code. And similarly, we will host this presentation on the project website, and the link below the QR code will take you directly to that survey as well. As you leave, we have provided cards with this information on a couple of chairs at this exit and on a small table at this exit. So if you don't choose to begin the survey tonight, or you can't figure out a way to get back there, please take one of those cards back with you as you leave. Share, raise awareness to your neighbors and folks that couldn't join tonight. And overall, I just want to thank you all for your participation and your continued support and participation in the survey here and beyond. Yes, Martha.
Microphone, microphone.
If there's someone who's unable to access this through a computer, either the URL code or the QR code, is there a person or a place that they can come to that can just help them walk through it?
So we do have some iPads here this evening, but if you are looking for some assistance beyond tonight, because I'm sure some people are just ready to go home, you know, can we go through the project website help, maybe, questions? And so the project website, stay connected. So if you're having trouble accessing the survey, or this Thought Exchange survey, if you just go to the foxhillbuildingproject.com, there's a place where you can enter a question or a comment or whatever. Doreen Whittier manages it, monitors it daily. So if you do need some assistance navigating or accessing the Thought Exchange, we'll be happy to help you. Thank you. We do want everyone to know 2 things. One is completely anonymous. There is some demographic information that we're asking, but we don't even see that. But it does help inform the survey and what people are thinking, but we don't even see that information. The other thing is, please make sure that when you come back to log in, because you'll be seeing other people's comments and thoughts, use the same device that you originally went in with, because otherwise you're going to start all over again. So if you're using your phone tonight, stay with your phone. If you're using a laptop, continue with the laptop. But Yep, go for it.
Just going to share that the information after the survey closes on the 29th will be available to the building committee and shared publicly at the next public forum as well. So we hope to collect the information and share it back with you, and hopefully make some decisions using that information that you share.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I don't think so. I thank you, everyone, and continue to get involved. We really do want to hear from you. Stay informed, as we know you will. Our next building committee meeting is October 3rd. Thank you.